A friend of mine wanted to put a 5-gauge cluster from a 66 Mustang in his 65 Ranchero. The biggest issue that confronted him was the ammeter. The Ford design is an ammeter with an external shunt, which the Ranchero does not have any provisions for in the wiring. Adding a shunt would mean running a battery hot wire into the dash, which would not have any fusible protection, just like the wiring in the 66 Mustang, and he was not happy about that. Also, the Ford ammeter circuit depends on very low resistance in the wiring, and the slightest variation in resistance can cause the ammeter to become inoperative or inaccurate. As you can see in the wiring schematic of the remote shunt ammeter, all of the resistances are less than an ohm, so the least little corrosion of a connection could upset the operation of the ammeter. I came up with an idea which kept the original look of the ammeter but used an oil gauge as a voltmeter. What most people don't realize is that the oil, temp, and fuel gauges are just really slow-acting voltmeters. Well, technically slow-acting ammeters, but that's because of Ohm's law. The voltage and current work in concert through a given resistance. In order to convert the oil gauge, I removed the faceplate from the oil gauge and replaced it with the ammeter faceplate. I blacked out the amp word and used white transfer letters to add the word volts, although you could leave the amps if desired. I also used smaller letters to add 12 under the center hash mark, just for reference. The wiring was very simple, needing 55 ohms to reduce the 12 volts to what was needed to put the needle to the center hash mark at 12 to 12.6 volts. Since a 25 watt 55 ohm resistor was not readily available, I used a 50 ohm and a 5 ohm in series. Amazon links for the resistors and transfer letters are included in the description. I mounted the resistors to the back side of the gauge cluster can with Solarez UV curable epoxy. I use this often because it does not require mixing and squeezes out of the tube to allow easy positioning of the epoxy and the components before using the UV curing lamp to harden it. You can also set the part out in the sunlight to harden. Hardening only takes about a minute with the cure lamp. The next series of photos will show where the gauge reads for voltages from 8 to 16 volts. While not a super accurate calibrated voltmeter, it is as good an indicator of charging or not charging as the generator light in the original cluster. Actually a little better, because the generator light won't tell you the alternator or generator is overcharging due to a faulty voltage regulator. Prolonged voltage above 15 volts can damage the battery. Finally, the video will show how long it takes to get from no power to 14.6 volts on startup. The way the gauge works is there is a bimetallic strip which is heated by a heating coil, which causes the strip to bend. As the strip bends, it moves the pointer. Since it takes time for the heat to transfer to the strip, the pointer reacts slowly. I don't think this is for everybody, but for those who want to keep the cluster original looking, but would like a functional gauge, this modification may work for you.